It was May 1940. Hitler's armies had smashed Europe, Western Europe. All was shattered. Hitler spoke to his chief air marshal, Hermann Goering, saying, "The war is over. I shall come to an accommodation with England." Goering laughed and danced a jig. Even members of my own parliament were ready to appease. Lord Halifax, my foreign secretary, was quoted as saying, "We must listen to Herr Hitler's proposal. It is the only thing that a man of sound mind, a reasonable man, could take." And Halifax and Herr Hitler were quite right, but they were about to discover they were not dealing with a reasonable man. And then suddenly, with France's surrender, we were alone. What General Weygand has called the Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. And upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Hitler knows he must break us in our island home nor lose the war. We can stand up to him. All of Europe may be free, and the world may move forward into broad, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, and the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and more protracted by the lights of perverted science. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duty, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and a Commonwealth should last for 1,000 years, men shall still say, this was their finest hour. I have rejected what many have said, that I inspired a nation. It was the British people, the race dwelling round the globe, that had the lion's heart. I was just lucky enough to be called upon to give the roar. Each of our honorees this evening have given a similar roar. They have shown indefatigable courage under fire on the battlefields of the 21st century. These are battlefields, ladies and gentlemen, where they have grasped the sword and the shield of innovation and genius, much like our boys in Bletchley Park. They grasped the basic notion that battlefields are the punctuation marks of history. And they have fought on the battlefields with gallantry and with honor. And they have made history. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please raise your glasses on high for a toast to our honorees this evening. Job well done. Hear, hear.
Ready, go. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the 2014 Churchill Awards. Please join me in welcoming CEO Karen Tucker.
Randy Otto as Sir Winston Churchill. Applause. Hello, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is a happy and very proud occasion as we celebrate the 4th annual Churchills. I know we will be inspired tonight by our honorees whose contributions have changed the world. I want to especially thank Shell, the innovation champion sponsor for this program, We know from working with Shell over the last 3 years how much the people there deeply care about the themes of our awards this evening, which of course are innovation, leadership, collaboration, and societal benefit. Our 4 presenting award partners are also outstanding companies with an enduring commitment to the values represented by our awards. They are Accenture, McKinsey, Panasonic, and SAP. Our inspiration leader sponsor is Qualcomm, and our supporting sponsors are Global Logic and Silicon Valley Bank. Thank you all so much for making this experience possible. I simply must acknowledge the magical Churchill Club team, Marcia, Danae, Matthew, Tiffany, Kathy, Mindy. You are amazing. And finally, our Academy, a group this year of nearly 700 leaders from all walks of the innovation community. The Academy submitted hundreds of nominations and votes and helped us to identify the worthy recipients this year. Thank you. I'd like to now invite a representative from the Academy and also of our lead sponsor, Shell, to come to the stage. Please welcome someone that we think of as our collaborator, mentor, and friend, Kim Paisley.
Good evening. This is a great night. I always love coming here for this event because I'm inspired, and I also feel a little less smart around these people. Anyway, it's a great evening. On behalf of Shell, unfortunately, all 90,000 of us couldn't make it tonight, so they sent me, and I'm delighted to be here. I work with Karen and her team on a regular basis to develop programming that we can contribute to and enrich what you are doing in Silicon Valley and learn a tremendous amount from you. I'm also very pleased to be here as a member of the Academy, and like Karen said, take very seriously the responsibility of selecting the winners in each of the 4 categories. I'd like to just very quickly share a personal story with you. Actually, Karen encouraged me to share it with you. It's relevant. A number of years ago, I took my then 15-year-old son to London on vacation, and he had never been there. It was his first trip, so we were seeing all the sights everybody sees. And off in the distance, I could see this dark, ominous cloud, and I thought, typical London weather. But what I didn't expect was a torrential downpour. It suddenly just poured. And my son Preston and I took cover underneath an overhang. We just went to the first location we could find. And it was a stately building. I didn't know what it was, but all I knew is we weren't getting wet. And that's all that mattered at that moment. And I turned to my right, and there was a little sign, very, very low to the ground and not particularly noticeable. And it said the Churchill War Room. And so I said, why don't we go see what that's all about? We went there mainly because we could get there without getting wet, but that's okay. So we went around the corner and went to this to the War Room. And as soon as I walked in, I felt totally surrounded by Winston Churchill. If you've never been there and you're in London, you need to go. If you go to London, please see this. It's phenomenal. I felt the presence of a very, very great man who had ways of inspiring people to do things in the right way. And I think that as a result of that, we're a better society. I also now, whenever I hear Churchill's name, I kind of perk up because, after all, I think of him as a friend of mine. I think we're friends because I've been to his place, so, you know, we're friends. So I tend to perk up when I hear his name, and I love his oratory, and Randy does a fabulous job. There is one quote of his that I think is particularly poignant and relevant this evening because it's reflective, I think, of the mindset and the determination of all of tonight's all of the recipients tonight of the awards. And that is his quote, and my favorite one of his, and that is very simple but very powerful, and it's never, never, never give up. Thank you.
It is a big honor to have Geoffrey Moore with us once again as our Master of Ceremonies. Geoffrey is a legend in the industry, and there is no one more recognized worldwide for his unique ability to understand and capitalize on disruptive technologies. And of late, he is focusing on helping established companies to strategize and think about their business transformation. And a little birdie told me that he's also managing to really work up his golf game lately, so I think he's diligently working at that as well. He's certainly one of the Churchill Club heroes and one of my personal heroes as well. Please give your warmest welcome to Geoffrey Moore.
Thank you. So as for the golf, never, never, never give up. I guess that's the motto for right now. Well, it's my pleasure again to invite you to what is now the fourth Churchill's award ceremony, and just to remind you, there are four themes that this event is intended to focus on, and they really are near and dear to our community, to our industry, and I just want to kind of remind you of them, and then we're going to bring our folks up. The first award we're going to give tonight, we're going to change a little order from the program, is the Magical Team Award. And the theme of that award is, you guys nailed it. And the team you're going to hear from tonight did what I think is the ambition of almost every team in engineering, and certainly every team out of this valley, and that is to make an insanely great product. It happens about once a decade. I would argue perhaps the iPhone was that in the last decade. This is the insanely great product of this decade. And no matter how hot your fanny is, if you sit on it, it will not bend. So you'll hear about that. The second award we're going to have is the Game Changer Award. And the theme of that award is, you have changed how things are seen and done, and there is no going back. And tonight what you're going to do is hear from a company that's at the forefront of what some are calling the collaborative economy. And in that collaborative economy, wherever it's touching many, many parts of our lives, it is for sure changing how things are seen and done, although there are still some who are not quite on board with there's no going back. So there's definitely resistance, but as they say, if there's no resistance, there's no change. So that one's going to be an exciting one. The third theme is the Legendary Leader Award. Tonight you're going to hear from a man who has been at the center of the mobile industry for most of his life, and who has been a seminal figure in making 1 billion people, device-carrying people on the planet, and fundamentally changing not only our personal and social lives, but increasingly our business and lives as citizens as well. He has the theme of that award is, couldn't have done it without you. This is a company and a man who has fierce competitors, but I think they would all grudgingly look at them and say, through clenched teeth, couldn't have done it without you, because we really couldn't have done it without him. And then finally, we're going to do the Global Benefactor Award, which is one of my favorites, the theme of which is, thanks for thinking big. And tonight we're going to honor a young woman whose courage and commitment and clarity of purpose is focused on changing the life circumstances for half the people in this world. And I think that's probably pretty big. So very, very rich program, very exciting. I just want to make one comment before we kind of jump into it, because the great irony of awards programs is they appear to be about the past, but they're really all about the future. So tonight we're here, we're going to honor some people for their achievements, and we're delighted to do so, but we do so in the hope that everyone here, including the honorees themselves, will be inspired to greater accomplishments in the future, to aspire to greater things. We want to reset the bar for what is possible. And tonight's honorees have done that. And the goal of tonight is not only to honor them, but for every one of us to internalize and raise our standards and raise our aspirations for ourselves and what we can do, because we can do a ton, and the world has a ton of jobs for us. And we need to be kind of like one of those professional athletic teams that they want to bring all their talent to the game, they want to put it completely to work, they want to leave it all out on the field. That's what these people have done. They've left it all out there. They didn't bring any back to the locker room. And so that is the goal of tonight, is to inspire all of us to bring that spirit to the things that we do as we go forward. So with that in mind, I'd like to turn to the first award. Now the first award is going to be the Magical Team, And I'm going to welcome to the stage Bob Rao of Panasonic to present the award. So Bob, would you please come up here? Thanks.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Hello, warmest regards to all of you. I am Bob Rao, Director of Business Development at Panasonic of North America. Even though we're here in Silicon Valley, home to the creation of many disruptive technologies, it still isn't every day that a company comes along and not only challenges the mainstream giants, but in doing so creates a totally new segment within an established industry and has everyone from its competitors to Wall Street asking, what will they do next? To make this kind of splash on the scene, the product design team must have nailed it. But anytime you disrupt an already established market, it takes passion, hard work, and an incredible vision by an incredible team to push the limits of what others see as possible. For the past 8 years, it has been the pleasure of Panasonic to see and work with this company as they went from a dream to a concept to taking the world by storm with its uniquely styled, technologically advanced, and I must say beautiful, Model S, a 100% battery-operated vehicle. That is why we are so pleased to not only call ourselves a partner of Panasonic, but to be presenting the award tonight for the Churchill Club's Magical Team Award, presented to an amazing team for collaborative breakthroughs that result in an irresistible product. The 2014 Magical Team Churchill goes to the Tesla Model S design team. Please welcome Thank you. Please welcome Tesla's chief designer, Franz von Holzhausen, with team members Bernard Lee and David Imai, and with their conversational leader, Barry Katz.
Maybe just one of these, and then you give that to Franz. Okay. Thank you so much. Yep. And you want to put, yeah, you want to put this right there. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Congratulations, Franz. Come on together. And then, no, you, Bob, you should be right here, I think. Okay, get everybody in here. You guys want to come up too? Come on. We're going to kind of an Ellen, a selfie? Can we do a selfie here? Hold on a minute. Okay. Go ahead. Like that?
Here we go. After 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Got it? Congratulations.
Great. Thank you so much.
You guys go ahead. Whoops. Congratulations. Congratulations. Sorry? Go get him. All righty.
Sure.
So are we on and mic'd? It sounds like we are. Personally, my own favorite Churchill quote, in the midst of the Blitz, and he spoke out to the English people, stay calm and carry on. These guys, the slogan is something like, freak out and disrupt. So let's freak out and disrupt a little bit. Good evening, everybody. We're delighted to be first off. And let me take no further time by way of introductions, and let's just get into it. First thing I want to say is I thought I was going to be late for supper because of all of those damn Model S's in the parking lot. I couldn't find a place to put my Mazda.
Yeah, I mean, who came here in a Model?
Who has to do with that?
Model S? Everybody? Anybody? All right. Thank you. You're changing the face of the automobile and one car at a time. Thank you.
And before I get into things, actually, why is it that the Model S phenomenon has taken the West Coast by storm and the East Coast by storm, but it's left this little bit of a void in the middle? Can you deal with that?
Can I deal with it? Not really, but You know, we're a California company. California is great at recognizing innovation and being leaders in that and kind of broadcasting that out to the world. So they'll get there soon enough.
I have no doubt. Okay, let's start. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all in advance for your attention. Thanks for the invitation. Maybe we can start out by just asking you, how is design at Tesla organized? Who's in charge? What are the divisions? What do you guys do for a living? Can you just say a little bit about what it means to head a design team at Tesla Motors?
Yeah, sure. I head up the design team, work directly with Elon, and brought a couple members.
Elon, that name is familiar to me.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of him. And a couple of my team members are with me today. We actually have a very small design team. It's comprised of 6 designers and myself. And 6 years ago, it was an army of one. It was me. And we've grown now to a small design team, but a support staff that just gets us through all the different aspects of design. And it's about 100 people strong now. So David joined a couple years ago. Bernie's been kind of by my side since the beginning. We actually worked together at Mazda and I think Volkswagen as well back 20 years ago, something like that. So, but we're a small team and we just go for it.
Dave and Bernie, can you say a little bit about what you personally do?
Yeah.
And if you want to add something about what it's like to work with him, that's okay.
So I manage the exterior and interior design team. We're the 6 people that Franz was referring to. It's a wonderful experience having such a tight-knit team and having a great leader. One of the reasons I joined really was I wanted to go somewhere where the leadership had a really strong vision. Elon's a part of that, and so is Franz.
I'm working on the exterior design portion of our design team. And I've worked with Franz, as you mentioned, for many years. And he's been always just a very strong purveyor of just excellence and high quality of design. And that's been something that has been sometimes really challenging. But then at the same time, when we look back, we're really glad that he pushed us that hard. Mm-hmm. And you can see that in the product as well.
So that might be some kind of a key to the magical team. You push, and you push back. Are they okay?
They better.
Yeah, it's expected. Among the 3 of you, you've got a tremendous amount of industry experience with Mazda, with Chrysler, General Motors, Opel. Can you tell us a little bit about what's different to be a designer at Tesla from the way design is organized in, let's call it the 20th century automotive industry, which is fast receding into the past?
Well, actually, I think you referred to us challenging Franz as one thing, and I think that's something that's unique about Tesla. There's an openness to it, an ability to challenge people, ask questions, ask Elon questions, ask Franz questions, and you're not put down or put in your place because of it. And I think because of that openness, a lot of innovation and a lot of good questions get asked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The chain of communication is much shorter than it is in other companies, so we can be a lot more decisive. Things happen very quickly. I think, we can accomplish in 2 months what other companies can do in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we all learned was how not to do things coming from other companies, especially the big automotive companies, and we brought that with us and said, all right, we have to kind of discard that baggage and create our new path, and communication is really key. So, being a small team, working directly with Elon, working directly side by side with engineers, allows us to iterate quickly and not wait for information to pass back and forth. And I think that's one of the most important things in kind of in anything. To move fast, you have to be able to communicate quickly and come to a decision and move forward.
Mm-hmm. I think probably everybody here, and certainly me, were interested in what it's like to work with Elon Musk. I've always felt that I have a lot in common with Elon. Every morning, we both wake up, we stretch, take a deep breath, and say, how am I going to change the world? And then I roll over and go back to sleep. And he does it.
And he launches a rocket or builds a factory.
Tell us a little bit about what it's like to work with Elon. Is he a hands-on manager? Is there pushback? Is he...
I mean, a lot of us know and see Elon as kind of the face of Tesla, and especially on the financial side, but he's really a product guy. He's an engineer through and through. So he's involved in every detail, every aspect of the product. And I think that's amazing when you have a leader, a CEO, somebody that really invests time and energy into making sure every nuance of every product and understands that if the product isn't perfect, then your company isn't perfect. And when you have that kind of push and that energy and that drive, that just makes us respond and makes us, deliver as well. And I think, again, it's part of that communication that we have. So Elon is very involved in the product. We see him on a daily basis and interact with him daily, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
And the same as we move outward into the organization?
Yeah, I think he's very accessible. Like Franz said, we see him every day. He isn't afraid to come up to you and kick the ladder out from under you and really challenge you to a point of tears almost, because he knows that in doing so, that will bring out the best in you.
I think
this isn't being recorded, is it?
Okay. Your, to my mind, astonishingly small and compact team has succeeded in what I personally believe is the most important innovation in the automotive industry in 100 years. How did you even start?
Well, we had this conversation a little bit 5 minutes ago about, when I equate it to being perhaps like an author, and you're presented with a blank page and need to write the book. And I think the hardest part is to start. The hardest part is to put the first words on the page and get that process going. And we were basically presented, when I joined Tesla 6 years ago, it was the same thing. We were at the infancy of an idea of what Model S, this sedan, could be. And it could have been anything. We could have designed and created anything. We had a couple of key components that we wanted to incorporate into the overall product. But the important part was, from my perspective, we had to capture all those things and make it beautiful and get people interested and involved in a disruptive technology. And we didn't want to alienate anybody from what, if you think back 6 years, an electric car was a glorified golf cart. And we didn't want to alienate people from what our vision of electric propulsion could be, which was better than gasoline-powered car. So, we started with kind of whatever you want kind of thing. Just make it great. And the hardest part was getting, kick-started and getting going. And once we did, man, we took off.
I myself have faced the terror of a blank sheet of paper a few times.
It's a dream. You as a designer, maybe an author, and maybe as an artist in general, in any kind of profession, the idea of being able to do whatever you want, anything, is an amazing dream. But actually starting that is probably one of the hardest things.
You want to add anything to that from the perspective of interior and exterior?
I think what's been really kind of liberating is that we don't need to package this big motor in the front of the car anymore. There's no drive shaft. There's no tunneling for exhaust. It's been, like Franz has said in the past, like we just have this battery pack and we have all this opportunity on top of that. And I think as a designer, it was really difficult in the very beginning because we were so accustomed to this architecture.
Yeah.
And for those limitations not to be there anymore, we had to really dig deep into our creativity. And I think it's to everybody's benefit what the architecture of the vehicle is now.
Yeah, that's so interesting because, we start out, if you say car, you think four wheels, steering wheel, and, the iconography of the automobile as it's developed over 100 years. And you had an opportunity to really mess with that. So here's another question. Let's, this has been a little bit of softball. Let's go to hardball if we can. The Model S has been, I don't know if I want to say criticized, but a number of commentators have remarked that it's a surprisingly conservative, or I think your word is restrained design. Can you say a little bit about that? You had the opportunity to do anything.
Yeah, and I think
Why doesn't it have just one wheel?
I think if you look back at yeah, right, that'd be great, more efficient.
That's why they didn't hire me.
Yeah. If you look back at where we were in time 6 years ago, electric cars were, like I said, a glorified golf cart, and that was the impression. And we didn't have kind of a competitive set, and the ones that were aspiring to be in this marketplace, tended to be all over the map. And what we knew as we developed Roadster that we had a really great recipe. We had a recipe that proved that you could have performance, and you could have range, and you could have everything that a typical normally aspirated engine vehicle could deliver, and better. Cleaner, efficiency was great, and there's no emissions, et cetera. So knowing that we had that underneath the skin, we needed to create a product, and I was really felt it was really important that we create a product that attracted people to this technology, because this technology, we take it a little bit for granted now, but back then it was new to everybody and really pretty scary to anybody beyond an early adopter.
Uh-huh.
And if we created the Jetsons Mobile, we would have catered to the early adopters and stopped right there. And we would not have been able to appeal to more of a mass market and had a confident car that can carry itself next to BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Lexus, and these types of products, and have the owners feel confident in their daily life with this product. Mm-hmm. And that's what we wanted. We wanted them to kind of, like I refer to the moth to the flame, be attracted to the product regardless of what's underneath the hood, learn about the technology, and then be engrossed in that and learn how it changes their life.
So you could have, with your blank sheet of paper, tabula rasa, you could have had at it with, an art center, Batmobile, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a deliberate decision to make it accessible and, as I think you've said elsewhere, create a car that people could imagine owning.
Yeah, and we were building a brand at the same time, and it's really tough to build a brand off a niche kind of a high-end expensive sports car.
Yep.
But we were building a brand off of a sedan, and this was really the kind of the shoulders, and it needed to be broad shoulders that the brand could build off of and sustain itself over time and build into new product like Model X and forward looking into Model 3, et cetera, and really sustain ourselves until we could get to even more affordable mass market electric vehicles.
I think the design of Model S also helps drive home the point that it's a very uncompromising vision. You can have supermodel proportions, yet at the same time have an electric motor and fit 7 people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And your golf clubs.
And your golf clubs.
Yeah.
In the front.
Charles Eames, who, as you doubtless know, America's most famous and beloved designer, once said that the mark of a really great design team is not your ability to escape constraints, but your skill in working within constraints. Can you say a little bit about what some of the constraints were in developing this new automotive concept?
I mean, we talked a little bit about architecture. We created a new architecture in the automotive market with the way that we engineer the vehicle, where the battery and the powertrain are really integral into the vehicle, and they need to exist and coexist with each other. And that's very different from, like you heard Bernie say, different from where a lot of us had come from in the past. I think we provided our own constraints in trying to create something that was very refined and tailored and exquisite and kind of this jewel element like Model S. And had we not had constraints like that, we would have ended up with Jetsons mobiles and things. You can just walk downstairs and look at what kind of the future of the automobile could have been, and we could have gone there very quickly, but I wonder if it would have really led to our ultimate goal as a company and Elon's ultimate goal, which is the mass adoption of electrical vehicles.
You talked about going downstairs to see, get a little bit of a sense of the future. Google has been running its experiments. Do you feel like speculating in front of an audience about the future of the automotive industry?
I mean, personally, I think the automotive industry, we're poised for a really dramatic, massive change in how we interact and deal with the automobile. I mean, if you look downstairs, there's kind of a little history on autonomous driving. But autonomous driving is right at our doorstep. I mean, in just a few years, every company, every automotive company, including us, will be kind of into the foray and delivering an autonomous driving vehicle. And that's dramatically going to change the way that we perceive, interact with, design and develop, and create the automobile. And it's a really exciting new future. I think there's going to be people that are challenged by this. Giving up a little bit of control is kind of scary, you know, and I think there's a whole new younger generation that is really excited about not having to drive anywhere and having the car take you somewhere. I know I am.
I think it's also one of the reasons, quite seriously, why virtually all of the major automotive companies have moved to Silicon Valley to be part of what else is going to be part of the automotive experience besides
They're just trying to look in our windows.
Okay. Oh, is that what it is? Okay. Okay, so now, Mr. Magical Team, I want to know, at what point did you guys feel like we nailed it?
I mean, personally, you know, we started, Tesla Design started, like I said, 6 years ago, and we really started in the back corner of SpaceX. When I joined Tesla, there was no design team, and we started with a little tent in the back of a rocket factory, and probably in a space maybe a little bit bigger than this stage here, and
It's the Southern California version of a garage.
Yeah, we kind of equated ourselves to a garage band playing on a big stage. You know, we had this vision and this idea, and you know, this amazing leader who really believed in it, and we believed in that as well, that we were actually changing the future and creating something that could change the future. And that was in 2008 when the kind of nuclear bomb of the financial world just was blowing up. And so we kind of had this mix of vision and, oh crap, what's happening in the world coming together. And once we were able to, you know, through amazing leadership actually ride through that storm, continuing to focus on the product, we announced and kind of showcased our first impression of what an electric car could be. And I think we felt, you know, the public response from that initial reveal and the interest that we had from there was, it was amazing. We took orders on that first day, and I think that's when, you know, we realized that we actually, you know, from your words, that we had nailed this idea that until that point was, you know, a dream, speculation. We thought we were doing the right thing, and then we realized we were.
Yeah. Well, you've got an amazing leader. I think you are an amazing leader, and it sounds like you've got an amazing team. So congratulations on your great work, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, me either. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Great.
Nice job. Thanks. Very good. Excuse me. Okay. So I guess some people are afraid of giving up control of their driving. My wife's afraid that I will not give up control of my driving. The self-driving machine cannot come soon enough for our family. But that was wonderful, and I think the Tesla, a business about designing a car that brings, the first car taught people about the technology that it could work, and the second car that invited them to come in. That's exactly to me. I definitely have Tesla lust. So and it was intended. It worked. It worked beautifully. Okay. Well, the next award is the Game Changer Award. Please welcome to the stage Jeff Kerr of SAP to present that award. Jeff, come on up to the stage.
Thank you, Jeff. I think we're the only ones in Silicon Valley that spell our name the same way. We can thank our parents for that. I'm Jeff Kerr. I'm with the marketing department at SAP. I'm really happy to be here tonight. As we all know, products and services are not all built the same. You know, there's some that have changed the world, some we can live without. It's amazing. Today, we can possibly live our lives without that little mobile device with all those apps that make things so much easier for us. If you notice, I didn't bring mine up because I have a BlackBerry. But innovation is actually at the core of what SAP does with our customers, our partners, and our employees. And it's our passion to help the world run better, and through creative ideas that are about game-changing potential. And this is why this is a great synergy for us to be working with the Churchill Club tonight and to be the sponsor of this Game Changer Award, which is presented to the company, as Jeff said earlier, for indispensable technology and business innovation with a spirit that really has truly changed the way things are, the way we're viewed, and we're not going back. So this year's 2014 Churchill Award for Game Changing goes to a company that has completely changed the art of couch surfing. If you think about it now, at the click of a button, you can rent a treehouse in Finland, an igloo in Africa. Africa, that wouldn't work, would it? But anyway, maybe.
It's a short stay.
Yeah, it's a short stay. So, and you'll have plenty of water. But you could also, tree houses in Finland, Airstreams in Colorado, or a castle in Spain. And I'd like to congratulate Airbnb and welcome Riley Newman to the stage to accept the award. And we've got Jeremy Imai to join us as well.
Okay. And here, Jeff.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Hey, Riley. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you.
Jeremiah's going to be with us too. Good. Okay. Okay. Great. So now Jeremiah's going to have a conversation with Riley, and we can listen in.
Good evening. Quick question. Has anybody here stayed at an Airbnb? Let's see a show of hands. So basically nobody. It was pretty much every hand. But let's see, who here's actually been an Airbnb host? All right, there's just a few, about 10 hands. And has anybody here been to the Airbnb headquarters, 888 Brandon? Isn't it amazing, right? If you go there, they brought all the famous listings, bringing the local in as the actual meeting rooms. It's quite fascinating. So Riley, congratulations. I would love to first hear about your background. One thing, it's amazing what he's done. He is running the data science, but he's also had a career in the Coast Guard, the United Nations. But what I think is really special is he is a hometown local San Francisco-born native. So let's give him a round of applause for that. That's rare. Let's hear about your background.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like an endangered species in San Francisco these days. It's kind of funny. So I grew up here in the Bay Area. It is, the epicenter of a lot of great things. Certainly technology, but it's also, I think, San Francisco is very much a world city. When I was an undergrad, I did an internship at the UN. I spent about 6 months with them, which was something that was very fascinating to me. It sort of connected with this identity of being part of the international community. And at the time, it was funny, it was a kind of a low point for US foreign policy, and you'd tell people that you're American, and they'd sort of turn away from you. But I was A/B testing that a little bit, and to other people, I'd say, well, I'm actually from San Francisco, or the Bay Area, and got this totally different reaction. They loved it. And they were so welcoming and friendly, and so that was something that very much resonated.
There's something in the air here. I don't know what it is.
Something special about this place. When I was an undergrad, I joined the Coast Guard to help pay for school, and it just seemed like more of an interesting kind of weekend job than like a pizzeria.
And you had a really interesting role.
Yeah. If you want to, so we, it was right after 9/11, and I was up in Seattle. The governor of Washington was very worried about the next terrorist attack occurring at the port of Seattle-Tacoma, and so she actually financed out of her state budget the creation of the Coast Guard's first SWAT team. So, alongside being a student, on the weekdays, on the weekends, I'd go learn how to be a Rambo, which was kind of fun. But anyways, what was interesting about college and kind of getting back to the UN and this, sense of, connecting with, all things international, I really wanted to travel, but didn't, have much of an opportunity because of the Coast Guard. And so following graduation, I spent about 5 months, going all over the world, all through Asia and Africa, and finished in the UK, where I went to grad school. And had a fantastic experience there, wanted to stay on and get a PhD, but the Coast Guard called me back. And so I said, okay, well, I'll go to San Francisco and kind of round out my time with the Coast Guard, and in the meantime, get a lot of exposure to data analysis and economics. That was right as, I think what you referred to as, the economic nuclear blast or something hit. I mean, it was, the worst recession in American history.
2008.
2008, and spent a lot of time trying to understand how that would play out, and really fell in love with using data to understand the world around us. So a few years later, I was done with the Coast Guard obligation. I was all ready to go back to the UK and do this PhD. But in the same week, I met the founders of Airbnb and my wife. So it was a pretty big week.
Well, I'm not asking you to prioritize. Yeah. She's right here. She's very lovely.
She's here. Brian and Joe are back in the city. So.
Second.
No, so there was something that was very striking about Airbnb. It was an idea that certainly resonated with my interest in travel. And coming from the Coast Guard, there was this sense of doing something that actually contributed to positive change in the world. It was very humanitarian, it seemed. And also, having spent a lot of time trying to understand the recession, it seemed like this great opportunity for people to make money in a way that they hadn't in the past, and invest that locally in kind of local businesses, their communities, that sort of thing. So at the time, it hadn't really taken off, but it seemed like something great, and so I blew off the PhD and stayed.
That's amazing. Airbnb has changed the world. People were being foreclosed in 2008, and they didn't have a choice. They didn't have a chance. They were angry at the banks, and Airbnb gave them an opportunity. Now, it's really interesting, Riley. There was some journalists that recently reported that Wyndham Hotels is worth $7 billion market cap, and Hyatt Hotels is worth $9 billion market cap. But 5-year-old Airbnb, who owns no beds, bathrooms, or bars, is worth $10 billion market valuation. Now, this begs a question. We're obviously talking about disruption, as Jeff teed up and Mr. Churchill. We're talking about game changing. That's the word that you received. And when there is a game change, there's somebody else on the other side of that playing field. Who is that?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about Airbnb is I think what we're certainly innovating in travel, but I think what we're really innovating upon is trust. And I think what we've disrupted is this concept that you may not be able to trust someone that you don't know in a place that you've never been. There's a lot of talk about how Airbnb is changing the way we travel. I actually don't think that's true. I think we're returning to a style of travel that the world used to engage in. If you went to some other city a long time ago, generations ago, you were going and staying with people that you knew. But as globalization picked up and people started moving more and more around the world, there's this information gap between people who need a place to stay and vacant spaces. And so Airbnb, I think, is bridging that information gap and simultaneously, building trust between people who had never met each other before.
That's great. I was recently, I cover your market, I look at it very closely, and I was talking to this Iowa insurance company, and they said, Jeremiah, we love what you're doing and covering this whole sharing collaborative thing, but it's not new. We've been doing this in the Midwest for 300, 400 years. It's called being a good neighbor. And so they're basically doing this to the Silicon Valley guy. And then I said, well, but hold on. We're enabling people to be good neighbors to strangers, and that's what you've done. Mm-hmm. Everybody can be a good neighbor.
That's right.
I would love to hear from you about the early days at Airbnb. You're employee number 9, is that right?
Yeah, ballpark, yeah.
I'm going to hit you up for a loan after this.
Yeah.
So I can buy a Tesla S85. But I'd love to hear about the early days. Were you guys heavily funded? Did you have like all the food things like in Google? Did you guys have elaborate Bentleys driving you? What was it like?
Yeah, we had all that. No, we did not have that. It was funny. We were joking at the table here. So I just started dating, my wife, and I had just started at this, fledgling company called Airbnb that no one had heard of and no one seemed to be able to pronounce. And so I brought Alex over. I was like, look at our new office. And we're working out of Brian and Joe's bedroom. And there's like a couple of us coding in this kind of like dark room. It sort of smelled. And then,
Is that what she said, or you admitted to that?
That's what she said, okay. And I agree. It was true. And then we would have, company meetings on the roof on a bunch of blow-up furniture. And that was our roots. It was very scrappy. It was a very exciting and intense, couple years. And we certainly were passionate about sort of the mission, what we were there to do. It was very clear to everyone that we were creating something that was, very disruptive, but also very beneficial. And so I think that's something that really, that's a thread that we can tie through, the years that I've been there. It's very scrappy, but, very, I don't know, I think high-minded and very positive. It's a very positive culture.
Tell us more about how that positive culture is fostering innovation.
Yeah, I think, I guess another way to think of being scrappy is resilience, which is certainly something that resonates with Churchill. It hasn't been easy, that's for sure. It's been an intense, few years. There's a lot that we've, run up against. And I think when you're disrupting something or creating a very disruptive business, there's naturally going to be a lot of, friction along the way. And you're kind of dealing with that alongside, hyper growth and trying to kind of hold everything together with duct tape alongside trying to build a business that, will help us grow into the future. So I think that has been kind of a very fascinating, experience that we've been working through, and we've had to be incredibly resilient, all along.
So I'd love to hear about some of your passion projects with data. I mean, you're mapping the digital neighborhood. What are some amazing things that you've found through your research as a scientist?
Sure. Something that I've been really kind of promoting both inside and outside Airbnb recently is that, data, another way to think about it is it's the voice of the customer. And data scientists, can translate that voice into a language that others can understand. And so, as people kind of click around the website or choose this listing instead of that listing, the reviews that they leave for, the host that they stay with, that's them telling us directly what works and what doesn't about Airbnb. And so there's been some really kind of fascinating work that we've done in the past to try to turn that data into information that can drive decisions about how to continue to grow and expand Airbnb and make it better. And we employ it everywhere in the business. We think about how should we drive growth of Airbnb based on where people are searching and where they want to stay, and how can we optimize the conversion rate of a search to a booking and a great experience. And there's some really fascinating things along the way that we've had to grapple with, that you might not expect. Like, somebody searches for San Francisco, I want to stay at a place in San Francisco. Well, what does that actually mean? People could want to stay anywhere in the city, and there's actually very different neighborhoods where people want to go. And so we use, data, people's past experiences, to inform answers to questions like that.
So their past behavior will recommend things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've also integrated sometimes Facebook data as well, right? So you can find matchings.
Yeah, I mean, that's a way to log in for sure. You can use Facebook Connect.
Yeah, that's great. We were chatting earlier about this whole ecosystem that Airbnb has bloomed around it, maybe intentionally or not. There's been cleaning services and key exchanges. What are some of the most interesting or surprising startups that you've seen revolve around your company? I think that's a sign of major success, a game changer, when there's little orbits around you.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing, at least from the perspective of an early employee in the early days, was starting to see some of these businesses sprout up, and it was like this real confirmation of what we were doing. It was that, and also hearing about every company is like the Airbnb for something, or every new startup is like we're the Airbnb for
There's an Uber for this, and Airbnb for that. I'm sure all the VCs hear the same thing.
Yeah. And
there's an Uber for weed I found out called Ease. It's true.
Yeah, so I mean, there's all these businesses that have sprouted up kind of around us, and I think that's very exciting for us because it shows that this is something that's here to stay, and it's something that people really want, and it clarifies kind of opportunities for improving the product that we've been working on.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, this marketplace coming from supply that we never even imagined. So let's talk about, have some real honest discussions. Airbnb's had, challenges. There's different cities react in great ways and not so great ways. Airbnb, I've read, has been banned in this city or that, and then it's changed. There's been, examples when people have had crazy adult parties or something like that happening. But I would love to hear, you don't have to comment on those specific things, but Jeff would be interested. The Valley is fraught with companies that do change and pivot. I'd love to hear, what is like the culture that enables you guys to get past some significant global top of media front page challenges that you guys have experienced?
Sure. Well, I would bring that back to this kind of theme of resilience, right? we truly believe in what we're doing, and we get such positive signals from the people who use Airbnb. The reviews that they leave are overwhelmingly positive. The experiences that people have tend to be, overall very, very good. And even the cities themselves where Airbnb is very, present, as they start to engage with the people who are using Airbnb locally, the hosts, the guests who are coming to the cities, and they see like the money that the hosts are making, that they're investing locally, and how they're creating new connections with people from all over the world, it's very hard to look at that and find something negative. So again, it's internally I think there's this real culture of resilience, and externally I think there's a lot of people who are kind of starting to understand what we're all about. And I mean, this is on a very local level something that I deal with. I'm still trying to get my parents to give this a shot, and
to stay or to host.
Both. So it takes people a while to come around to the idea that somebody's going to be staying in your place. It's just a very foreign concept to people. But what we find is that when people try it, they really like it.
Well, what recommendations do you give? Like, most of the hands went up of people here that are actually guests, but there was only 10 hands up that were hosts. Can you help all the guests here explain to them why they would love to have me come over and stay?
Yeah. Wouldn't you guys want Jeremiah to stay in your place? Come on.
Yeah.
We're very honest with ourselves. I think it's the kind of thing that works very well for many people. Some people just don't have the space, or it just doesn't work with their kind of living circumstances. But for those that do, it's something that I actually think it makes a lot of sense to me that Airbnb sprung up in the midst of the worst recession in history. It was a moment where people were looking around for something that could help them get through it. And we've got these incredible stories of people who, who fed their families, who saved their mortgages, whatnot, by trying hosting because they've got this spare room in their place, and it was like, well, let's try this.
Right.
And then it turned out to be a really good thing. They're making money, they're meeting people, they have these great experiences, and so it really clicks.
And some people don't even do it for the money. They want to just connect with. I've stayed with some folks, and they were empty nesters, and they just wanted to meet really interesting young Asian guys.
Well, there you go. So there's that.
That's on my profile, my Airbnb profile. Okay. Recently in the news, Airbnb has moved into other areas in hospitality, such as food and experimenting. Tell us about the future. Where is this all headed?
Sure. So, there was a really interesting moment in Airbnb history back in, the end of 2011. And it's funny because, back then we still had this feeling that, there was just so much ahead of us still to do, but people were already starting to talk about what's Airbnb going to do next? Is it still travel, or is it, something else? And Brian, our CEO, it's funny, whenever he reads, something, over Christmas, he goes away for Christmas, he reads a bunch of books, he comes back, and then he's got all these new ideas. And so that Christmas, I think he was thinking a lot about this, and he read Walt Disney's biography. And Disney was confronted with sort of a similar question, where he was, very experienced and successful with animations, but had moved to Hollywood, and the deal in Hollywood was, feature-length films, but not animations. And so he was kind of confronted with the same question of do I keep doing what I've been doing, or do I pivot and do something different? He decided, no, I'm gonna make feature-length animation films, and continued on to be very successful.
A new category.
Yeah, and so I think Brian was thinking a lot about this in early 2012, and we went through this really interesting process. We call it the Snow White experience, where it's like we thought a lot about what we were doing, travel, and kind of this experience that people had on Airbnb. And we actually storyboarded the whole process. We went through both. You've seen it, yeah. Both the guests and the host frames.
Tell everybody what it looks like so they can imagine in their mind.
We actually had a guy from Pixar come in and animate every frame of the guest and host experience. And it's like, these are the critical moments that people go through. And we took a step back and thought about that. And it was like, it would be crazy to neglect this whole experience in favor of doing something totally different, because there's still so much to do. We're only touching a portion of it. There was, the online kind of booking component, but there was still so much that was happening offline. And that was the beginning of Airbnb, moving in the direction of becoming a hospitality brand, which I think, ultimately led to the rebrand that we did this summer. I mean, it was about, kind of moving away from just being like an online platform for booking a place where you want to stay and becoming a true hospitality company. It also coincided with bringing Chip Conley on. who's been a great presence in the company. And so this is something we think a lot about for Airbnb's future. I think there's
Mr. Mendenhall, your new CMO.
Yeah.
From Coke.
Yeah, exactly, Jonathan.
So just to pause on that, so the founder, CEO of JDV Hotels and a top executive in marketing from Coke joined Airbnb. That's pretty significant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so I guess what I would say is when we think about the future of the company, and I think about myself as a Bay Area native, a local, when I have people who travel into San Francisco and want to do something here, like I love showing them kind of the best that we have to offer, and that's I think the really great thing about Airbnb is that when you go to this new place that you've never been, you can stay with somebody who really wants to show you the best of what they have, and
like an old friend.
Like an old friend. And if that's what we can create in the future, if we create more of that, then I think we've done a good thing.
And that's a great story on resilience. Mm-hmm. Strangers being like real friends. So I'd love for you to close out with a vision 5 years from now. Another 5 years goes by. How has the world changed because of Airbnb? What does this look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I think about that, I think about these sort of global cities or global communities of connections. Like I think right now there are a lot of relationships that are very local, and you've got Facebook and a lot of social networks that connect you to people that you already know. But what I think Airbnb is doing is creating so many new connections around the world, and so kind of where that leaves us is an open question, but it's interesting.
I'd like just to propose a toast to Riley and Airbnb on the term resilient. I'd like you to raise your glasses and we will cheers. 1, 2, 3, resilience. Cheers.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Sit down, Jeremiah. Good deal. Oops, okay. What's special about a Churchill Club event is you always learn something. When you have a data scientist on the podium like Riley, you can learn about A/B testing. So we learned about A/B testing tonight. We learned that at the UN, they don't like Americans, and they do like people from San Francisco, from which we conclude San Francisco is not part of America. This is data science at work. I thought it was very inspiring, and the business model innovation stuff we'll talk a little bit more about at the end. What's my pleasure, we're halfway through the program, my pleasure now to introduce the next award presenter. This is John Walsh from Accenture, and he's going to present the award to the legendary leader. John, will you come up? Thanks.
Thank you, Geoffrey. Again, my name is John Walsh, Senior Managing Director at Accenture. I'm responsible for our telecom, media, and technology practice in North America. I'd like to start tonight by congratulating the Churchill Club for putting on truly innovative programs like this one that really bring together some of the really notable leaders in our industry. So as Geoffrey said, tonight I'm presenting the Legendary Leader Award. And earlier tonight we heard how many people in the audience have a Tesla. We heard how many people have stayed in an Airbnb. How many people in the audience have a mobile phone? I think that's everybody. And that's what makes presenting the award tonight such a privilege. So the Legendary Leader Award is about inspirational leadership, vision, and contributions to others' innovation and success. When the Churchill Club asked its Academy to nominate honorees for this award, they asked them to identify people who have the long-term vision to see a brand new future. People who frame the industry, societal needs, and envision solutions that are uniquely their own. Solutions that once delivered have the power to reshape the world as we know it. At Accenture, we believe that great leaders are also great mentors. And it's this combination that is critical to inspire people, develop talent, and fuel teams to achieve their highest aspirations. Our honoree this evening has done just that. Not only is his long-term vision and sustained commitment to innovation literally driven the evolution of the wireless industry, but he was also recognized by his employees as one of the top 5 highest-rated CEOs in technology, actually top 2, I guess. Every single one of us in this room, and as Geoffrey mentioned in his opening comments, billions more around the world are direct beneficiaries of our honorees' leadership and innovation. So without further ado, it is my distinct privilege to present the 2014 Legendary Leader Award to Dr. Paul Jacobs, Executive Chairman of Qualcomm.
Congratulations, Paul. There it is. Come on, we're going to go picture here. All right. All right.
I don't have to wear this, right?
No, you don't have to wear it. Or shrink your head. Okay? Come on over. Great. So this is a little bit like cheating. Paul and I have known each other quite a while, and we've had lots of conversations. And this is just going to be one more fun one for me. But
you know all the answers.
Well,
so.
I know some of the answers, but I don't think I know all. Let me start with this one. So I didn't know. So when you
Can I start with a question first?
Yeah.
How many people have 2 cell phones? How many? 3? If you have there we go. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think the mobile phone has been the most disruptive innovation of my adult life. I think it has rewired the world. I think the internet and the mobile phone together, I think, probably have been amazing. When you took the reins of CEO at Qualcomm, it was already a $5 billion company. It was a CDMA company. But CDMA was not under attack, but the industry was trying to find a way to get out from underneath some patent situations there. And LTE was going to be the thing that was going to, kind of put Qualcomm in its place. And one of the first things you did as a CEO is you bought an LTE company.
Yep.
Why?
Okay, so LTE hadn't really yet come to the fore, but we saw this technology, OFDMA, which is kind of the fundamental technology underneath 4G. And I had heard about it before, and I'd started a team working on it. This company, Flareon, had actually built a mobile system out of it. And it was getting traction, and it was really an effort by the industry, as he said, to sort of eat our lunch. And my philosophy is always, if somebody's going to eat my lunch, I want it to be me. So, it was part that. And the other thing was, as I took over, what I wanted to do was change the perception of the company about itself, that we were much bigger than just CDMA technology. And it was actually even one flavor of CDMA that we were known for, the one that Verizon and Sprint and some others used. And so it was really a statement to the company, we're going to do something different. We're not going to just protect the thing that we've built. We're going to go out and we're going to be great at all wireless technologies. And then, of course, that led to being great at computing and graphics.
Well, let me ask you something, because my guess is, I spent time with venture companies. My bet was inside Flareon, they got up every morning to beat Qualcomm. I mean, and now you've brought
to beat Qualcomm.
To beat Qualcomm. Oh, I see, just to kind of blow right past you?
No, they absolutely, that was their model. They wanted to be us. And they were actually guys that we knew well. I mean, people that we had worked with.
So were they happy? I'm trying to get a sense. How did the two?
They were happy. We knew them well. There was a ton of respect between the two companies, and the guys that were there, I think, wanted to work with us, and they saw that we could kind of be a launch pad for them to take their ideas and really go change the world with it. And I think they felt like it was going to be a slow progress the way they were going. With us, it could be big, and they knew our culture too, and our culture's a really nice culture for somebody who wants to innovate. So that was attractive.
You should give yourself. I mean, many small companies have wanted to use a large company to scale. I think very few large companies have been able to do what you were able to do. So I think that's probably part of this legendary leadership. It was interesting listening to a product company and then a business model company. I think of you as a technology company. Do you think of your company as a technology company?
Oh, for sure. I mean, our idea is we want to make the next new thing all the time. And, people sometimes complain about it, that, our prices are a little higher, but we want to sustain that by continuing to differentiate. And we want to be worth that extra price that you have to pay for the most leading edge chips, and you just got to continue to innovate all the time to do that. And so, I look at us as a company of ideas, and I actually look at our chipset business as a distribution channel of ideas. And the licensing business is a thing that lets us invest early in creating ideas before the market even gets there. We can invest, and those ideas aren't very valuable unless they get into the market, and the chipset business takes those and gets them into the market.
And your business model gives you a fund to take many bets, because not every technology bet's going to work.
Sure. I mean, I have my list of ones that haven't worked.
So we've talked about, it was interesting, because we talked to a design team, and we said, well, how do you lead from design point of view? And then Jeremiah was talking with Riley about, well, how do you lead business model transformation? So you're leading a technology company. How do you lead a technology innovation? What is the role of the leader in that model?
To me, I mean, the way that we run the company, it's not a top-down strategic plan where we map everything out. It's really, I believe my role in the company was, and actually still is in a lot of ways, to articulate a vision for what's possible. And the nice thing about a vision is that it's very integrative. People can work on their own project, and they can look up and say, okay, that's the direction that we're all heading. We'll do this, and this thing over here, that's not what we're doing. We're doing things that head in this direction. And so, having that sort of compass instead of a map is really what's important. And I think that's worked well. And I learned the lesson, actually, when I was running our handset business, and I had a different leadership technique, which is a really bad one, which is us versus them. And what I found there is that when I started to say, hey, we're great and those other guys are bad, sure, that brings your team together in a certain way, but everybody models the leader. So if I'm saying us versus them, all of a sudden everybody down the ranks are saying us versus them too. So engineering's blaming sales and marketing's blaming finance, and it's like fractal. Everybody just kind of breaks into their own little pieces, and it really was disintegrative. And so when I took over as CEO, I wanted to articulate a positive way, a thing that brought people together, and it's worked extremely, extremely well.
Well, it certainly has, but the thing that's hard to imagine, I mean, when you describe that, I think, well, that's a great way to run a lab. That's a great way to run maybe, Bell Labs. But you're a $25 billion company. You have a huge chip business that's a very, very meticulous, demands very meticulous planning. What is the role, how does your leadership integrate with a team that has to do such very, very long range and very, very demanding plans?
So the problem is that the chip design cycle is long. So you don't actually know exactly what the chip is going to be when you finally bring it out to market. You build all these components, and then either the chip has all of that stuff in it and you disable certain things and you optimize a little bit, or some get left out and other ones get put in and things like that. I mean, we're very late configuration for a chip company.
You are a late bind. It seems to me it's the total opposite of Intel. Or is that true? Do you think Intel has, I mean, to me, Intel has a much more controlling style. It's much more, I remember the copy exact formula from way back when. It just feels like a very, very different model. I'm shocked that both of you could be so successful as chip companies.
I mean, I don't know their internals. I do know they do this copy exact thing. And if you look at the sort of the fabless industry, that we're in the fabless industry, one of the things that you notice about the factories is you go in there and it's like Star Wars. There's little robots running across the roof, and they bring wafers from this machine over to this one, and it's just like all sorts of controlled chaos going on. But it's it's like jazz. It just it comes together and it works. And so it's I think that's been good for us too. I mean, we're all about, okay, well, how much inventory do you really want to have, and can you make that leaner, and how late can you package the parts, and how late can you test, and so the idea of flexibility pervades the company, and it really it's flexibility, it's being really opportunistic. It's like you see something, you get yourself very prepared, but when you see the opportunity, you're like, boom, go. And that's the thing. And as we've gotten bigger, it's harder and harder to do that. I mean, you'll get people in the organization that'll be like, well, I got to protect the status quo. But that's death for a company like us. I mean, we need to innovate all the time, and we try and root that out. And we're better or worse at it at different periods of time. But it's in our mindset, that's how we got to be.
When it's a very late binding style, as opposed to dictating something at the beginning and fleshing it out. As you say, you're creating options for yourself all the time going forward. Has that caused you, I'm just trying to think about your leadership team. So that it requires a lot of trust, and presumably that you're taking a bunch of risk that's pretty damn unnerving.
Yeah.
How do you convene the team very often? How do you maintain people's?
We're non-hierarchical, and we're incredibly organic. And when there's an issue, people self-organize to solve the problem, and it's still that way. And the senior leadership team, we're all friends. We all talk to each other all the time. There's no issues of, oh, you're playing in my sandbox, and no, you shouldn't do that. I mean, if somebody's helping you, they're helping you. You know, it's not like they're trying to get something. It's not a zero-sum game. And I've seen that in other companies that we've dealt with where, you know, we were working with certain companies that we were trying to do something really innovative with them, and the person that we were working, the champion of that project, just got attacked with the long knives by everybody else. We're not at all like that. And I think, you know, it came from the point of view of respecting the people, seeing the people as really the core value of the company, and the fact that we don't have big factories and stuff like that. I mean, I think it came from that mindset and sort of having a university, almost a family feel to the company.
Did you find yourself at various points? I mean, Jack Welch often talks about one of the biggest challenges for a CEO is an incredibly talented manager who's a wrong fit for their culture.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself ever having to deal with that problem?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, it's so, because we're so non-hierarchical, when you get people who come in from the outside, they'll often think, because they sit in a certain place with a certain title, all information must flow through them and then be distributed by them. It doesn't work that way at all in the company. And in fact, a senior manager can even be left out of the conversation if they're not value add. And so that really freaks people out. I mean, you can imagine, you're like, you know, a senior guy and you're not included on the email trail. And, you know, so people will complain about that. And they either sort of get it and they can adapt to it, or they don't get it and they end up going somewhere else.
And you said email. You know, we're very interested in this whole interest in collaboration, becoming, I think, trying in many ways to be more like Qualcomm. Are there technologies for collaboration? Is there something beyond email, or is email the backbone of the company? How do you actually maintain this collaborative fabric in terms of just supporting technology?
I mean, email's, yeah, it's a big piece, and the fact that we all have it on our phones, and we've done email on mobile devices for a very long time, and text messaging. Voice is actually a little less. You know, I mean, there was a time when I got so overwhelmed by my email before I really had a device I could carry around that I said to people, okay, you actually have to talk to me. It didn't scale very well that way, and you know, I can scan through an awful lot of emails pretty quickly on my phone.
Are all your folks in one camp? I mean, it feels like with this collaboration, it's sounding like we're one family in one room or one building. How spread out are you, and how big is the company?
Yeah, so we're, depending on how you count, between 35 and 38,000 people, depending on contingent workforce and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And we're spread globally. And we learned the lesson how to work in a distributed organization. I'd say it took us probably 10 years. We had an office in Boulder, and we had an office in Israel. And it was like, for 10 years, we probably sat there and said, should we shut these down? This isn't working. And the reason why it was happening that way was because we were trying to use them as job shops. We were like, okay, it's just a set of resources, and throw them some stuff every so often. And it just doesn't work, because it's so much easier to walk down the hall and meet somebody and have that serendipitous moment than it is to call somebody around the world. And so what we ended up finding was you actually have to give missions to those offices, and they would become the center of excellence for some subset. And now, of course, in San Diego, we still had people who knew it, so that the interface was good, and we had, you know, exchanges of people and all sorts of stuff to make sure the culture was getting out there. But it was really this idea of giving missions. And I think it goes along with the vision part too, that you feel like you're all kind of marching a certain way. You've got a nice critical mass of people there. And you know, it was sort of trendy to say that the world is flat and it really doesn't matter where you are. I don't find that. I think that the world's got very big lumps. I mean, there's a huge mountain here in Silicon Valley, and it's because you run into people. I mean, Churchill Club's a great example. I mean, the number of interesting things that have happened here for me, you know, it's cool. I brought the first smartphone here, I don't know, it was 97 or something like that. And after my talk, the guy walks up to me and shows me video running on a Palm Pilot, and our smartphone was based on a Palm Pilot operating system. All of a sudden, we have video running on a smartphone. Back then, it was like, wow, didn't look incredibly awesome.
No, but it was technology.
But hey, the dog could dance.
Do you think we should call this thing a phone?
I mean, I still call it a phone.
Oh, I do too. Do you make any?
Sometimes we say mobile devices, but it just sounds so goofy.
It does. What percent? If you had to take 100% of your use of that device, how much of it is talking on a telephone call?
Yeah, it's so little these days. It really is true. And even some of that is like, I want to send a short, voice,
broadcast,
chat, or something like that, So, but that's been the cool thing. I mean, getting so much stuff integrated into the phone, because there was a time when we'd tell people, hey, we put the internet in the phone, we put graphics, we put entertainment, and people were like, why do you keep putting all this junk in the phone? I just want to make phone calls. And all of a sudden, there was that tipping moment. I think Apple and Steve Jobs did an incredible job marketing these technologies. And they brought, they integrated some stuff, put really nice art around it, and it became mainstream. And all of a sudden, I'd go from cocktail parties where you're like the odd guy in the corner to everybody's saying, what's the next thing? What's coming? What's coming? What are you going to give me tomorrow? And that's fun.
So I want to follow up on one last thing. So because you're talking a lot about vision and how vision becomes integrative and aligning, and a couple of things that you do that maybe other CEOs don't. One is you do a lot of speaking in public. You're the World Economic Forum. You're around the world, and we talked about the bully pulpit and how. Talk about the effect of something you say in public on your own company. How does that work?
Well, so there are certain messages that I really try and get across to the company. And when I first took over, we were known for innovation and we were known for execution, but we weren't known as a great partner. People thought they had to work with us. So at my very first all hands meeting, I put up innovation, execution, and partnership. And I said, that's what we're about. And by doing that and just repeating it over and over and over, it just became part of the culture. And then started talking about, okay, we ship hundreds of millions of chipsets in a quarter. There's billions of people that are using these technologies. If you have an idea and you get it into the chipset, you can affect hundreds of millions of people's lives in 3 months. And that's a huge opportunity, but it's also a huge responsibility to do something good with that. And I repeat that. And people, they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. I find, people love to be part of something and feel like they're changing the world for the better. And here they can, at Qualcomm, they could do it. And you just say it over and over, and people believe. And then you articulate the vision, whether it was, we're going CDMA, we're doing the wireless internet, we're integrating all this stuff into the phone. Our new thing is, kind of creating this digital sixth sense that integrates cyberspace and real space. And you just say it over and over, and people follow, because it also helps, success helps, right?
Success does help.
You build one success on the other, but people will follow even when you fail. I mean, and as long as they know that when you fail, you're going to learn something from it, and you're going to kind of make, do the lemonade out of lemons kind of thing.
So one last thing, I guess you were in a conversation with Peter Diamandis a little while ago, and the word tricorder came up, and this talk a little bit about this. That people may not even know about the Tricorder X Prize, and kind of how does that fit into your whole leadership?
So that actually is another Churchill Club thing. John Rubinstein and I were being interviewed by Kara Swisher, I don't know, a few years ago, and we're talking about how all these Star Trek devices are now real, and she said, what's the next one? And we had been working on mobile health for a long time, and I said the tricorder. And kind of went on and talked about that and sensors and all the kinds of stuff that's going on that will enable it. And then Peter Diamandis, who runs the X Prize Foundation, came down to visit. I guess it was like 2 weeks later. It might have been a month, but it was really shortly after that. And we had had some big deal that had gone well, and we had put $50 million into the Qualcomm Foundation, so there was money there. And he comes into my office for lunch, and he says, oh, we had this idea at our visioneering session, and we want to do the tricorder. And I said, I want to do the tricorder too, and we're going to do it. And it was like, okay, well, that's a $20 million check. And I said, right there, literally It didn't take much more than a few minutes. I said, we're going to go do that. And the idea there is that we've been working on mobile health for a long time, and there's a lot of successes in mobile health, but it's not well known. It's not mainstream at this point. It's probably more mainstream in developing countries maybe than here. And I'd like to create that same moment where there's a tipping point, and people all of a sudden go from, I'm pushing it on them, to, it's pulling.
It's like that's the S Tesla. All of a sudden now we're
exactly. Now it's coming, and that moment will be great because it's gonna change our lives. I mean, using mobile technology and connecting up is going to change the way healthcare is done.
What do you think the prize idea itself, the prize as a mechanism for visionary leadership, what does that do for you?
I mean, what it does is it brings in a lot of other people's efforts. It's very similar to what we do in our normal business, which is we provide the enabling, either technology, or in this case, we provided the money and maybe a little bit of technology also. And then other people spend their effort and they build on it. And so it's so much greater than the sum of the parts. I mean, you really get great synergies out of working with the partners, and this is the same kind of thing. And it's a global competition, so there's teams from all around the world. And one of those teams, or maybe more, is going to win this prize. And they're going to diagnose 15 diseases better than a panel of doctors with a 5-pound device that even a normal consumer can use. And that will be a great day.
And that will be an extraordinary day. Paul, thank you so much. This was great. Thanks a lot. Thanks. That's pretty cool. Okay, it's now time for our last award of the evening. It's the Global Benefactor Award. And let's welcome Laura Furstenthal, a principal of McKinsey & Company, who will present that award. Laura?
Thank you, Geoffrey. I'm Laura Furstenthal. I'm the managing partner of McKinsey & Company's San Francisco office, and I'm very excited to be here today to present the 2014 Global Benefactor Award. I feel a bit compelled to ask, since all of my fellow presenters did, how many people in this room have an education and are grateful for that privilege? This year's honoree has demonstrated immense courage, impacting access to education not just for a city or a country, but for the Earth's population. It is rare, but sometimes an idea scales across countries and cultures, uniting people in a common cause, and generally making the world a better place. The Global Benefactor Award is about stepping forward with energy and conviction and contributing to the betterment of society and the world around us. This year's honoree, again, could not be more deserving. When the announcement came that the Churchill Academy had selected Malala Yousafzai to receive this award, we at McKinsey could not have been more excited. The award gave us pause, a chance to reflect upon how significantly we have been influenced and inspired by Malala's sacrifice, her personal contribution to the lives of girls around the world, and their fundamental right to an education. We're also humbled to have played a very small role in that story. A dear friend of Malala's, Shiza Shahad, was working as an analyst in McKinsey's Dubai office when she heard that the Taliban had tried to assassinate then 15-year-old Malala for speaking out about girls' rights to an education. My McKinsey colleagues were in full support of Shiza as she went on leave to go to Malala's side to help her with recovery. The two of them then went on to found the Malala Fund, of which Shiza is now CEO, and another of my colleagues, Lynn Taliento, has joined the board of the Malala Fund to help with the cause. Malala cannot be here with us tonight for very good reason. She's in school. Just as she is likely to be for many Septembers to come. Therefore, let me call up Susan McCaw to accept the award on Malala's behalf. Susan is a founding board member of the Malala Fund, former US ambassador to Austria, and by the way, and we're very proud of this, a former McKinsey analyst. Susan, we're deeply honored to present Malala with the Churchill Club's Global Benefactor Award.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Great. Thanks, Laura. Thank you. Okay, great.
Shall we run the film right away, or how do you want to
Sure. There's a short film that Malala sent, so maybe I'll just tee it
Say a few
up.
words, yeah.
2 weeks from today marks the day in 2012 when Malala was shot. This was the day when gunmen boarded her bus, her school bus, and they asked the simple question, who is Malala? And that question changed not only the life of Malala, but really sparked an interest and galvanized the world on the importance of education and equality. So what those gunmen failed to realize, when they thought they were trying to assassinate Malala, what they really did was encouraged her and gave her confidence to speak out even more bravely on her cause for education for all girls around the world. So with that, let me tee up
if you'd run the video, please.
we have.
Dear Susan, thank you so much for being there on my behalf. Thank you so much for being a friend and for your contributions to the Malala Fund. Thank you so much, the Churchill Club, for this wonderful honor. I'm really sorry that I'm not there, but I'm 17 years old. I have to continue my studies, work hard, so I'm really sorry I'm not there. This award has special meaning for me because Winston Churchill, he has been an influential leader, and he has many contributions to society. He stood up for freedom, and he struggled for human rights. So I think it's really great honor that I'm receiving this award, and I'm really thankful because it really strengthens me in my campaign for education when I see that people are supporting me, they're joining me in this campaign, and I want to see every child going to school. My dream is quite simple, and I stood up for this dream because when I was 10, 11, I could not get this opportunity to go to school. I was out of my school because at that time the terrorists, the Taliban, they stopped girls' education. They were against the freedom of women. And at that time I spoke, I raised up my voice, and I said that if I want to go to school, then I should not wait for someone else to come and speak for me, but I have to do it. I have to go and I have to do this campaign. And the Taliban, they targeted me, but they did a big mistake because at that time I was speaking up for girls in Pakistan, girls in Swat Valley, but now I'm speaking up for girls all around the world, girls in Nigeria, girls in Syria who are now deprived of this basic human right of education, but they're also now homeless. Many of them are refugees in Jordan. I also went to Nigeria on my 17th birthday to speak up for my Nigerian sisters, and there I met so many girls and even boys who cannot get education, and it is their dream. They want to go to school. When I went to Jordan, I met Mozoon. She's an amazing girl. She wants to become a journalist. She wants to contribute to her society. And I asked her that, what is your dream? Do you want to be a rich woman, have a big palace? And she replied to me and said that she just wants to go back her home and she wants to get education. That's her only dream. She's not asking for any Xbox or PlayStation. Her wish is to get quality education. So I think it's very important that we think about these children and to think about their future. We, the Malala Fund, we have started projects there in Pakistan, in Jordan and Nigeria, but still we need to do more, and we need to continue this campaign until we see every child going to school. So once again, thank you so much, and I'm really happy and honored that you are with me in this big cause, in this big campaign of education. So thank you so much once again.
Wow. So Malala mentioned some early. So first of all, what is your role in the Malala Fund?
I am a founding board member, and my connection is actually through Shiza Shaheed as well. Our foundation has supported educational efforts, one being scholarships for developing country students, and this particular scholarship was at Stanford. We've gotten to know several of the students from the developing countries. We've had a few from Pakistan, one of whom was Shiza. So Shiza every summer would go back to Pakistan and work. She's a social entrepreneur just by nature, would go back and try to help out her country. One year she heard about what Malala was doing. This was in 2009. So Shiza formed a summer camp for Malala and a handful of Malala's friends to help empower them to speak out about education.
Now, time out. Malala's 10 years old.
Malala was 10, yeah.
Like most 10-year-olds, right?
Yeah, 10 or 11, 10 or 11.
Yeah, but just wow.
And,
wow.
But Malala had already started. She had already started the blog, and
talk about the blog a little.
this was a blog for BBC, and it was an anonymous blog, and she wrote about life under the Taliban, and it was very heartfelt. But again, it was from the vantage point of a 10-year-old, and through that she gained recognition, and there was a New York Times writer who followed it and ended up doing a larger story on it, and that's where I think Shiza had heard about it. So she had organized a summer camp, got to know Malala and Malala's family, became a trusted advisor, and then fast forward several years when Malala was shot, the family called upon Shiza, who took a leave of absence from McKinsey. I had been in close contact with Shiza throughout, and so when I knew she was doing this, we were encouraging her. And it's been phenomenal. It's been quite a ride, because this is a young woman, Malala, who people thought would not survive this gunshot wound. She was flown out of Pakistan, courtesy of the UAE government, to Birmingham in the UK, and there she underwent treatment and miraculously recovered with some great medical assistance. And their family still remains there. They live in a house there with her 2 younger brothers and her parents.
Wow. Well, that's an amazing story. She mentioned, she said, we're starting some projects, I think, in Nigeria and several other. What kind of projects is she involved in, or is the fund involved in?
So the fund has 3 different missions. Its mission is to support girls' education through three different ways. One is through advocacy, and to advocate on behalf of girls at the local, national, and global levels. Second would be to amplify, and to amplify specifically girls' voices, to encourage them to speak up for their rights and for the freedom to go to school. And third would be to invest in local programs that are providing real-life solutions in some of these countries.
And so what is that? What does that look like? I mean, if we're going to get education to girls in a society where the society is structurally kind of in resistance to that, what kinds of things are people trying to do?
Well, there's many different stakeholders. So, for example, at the UN, there's a global partnership for education, and Malala and her father have been very involved in speaking out on this behalf. And then country by country and region by region.
Does it tend to work through the government as opposed to grassroots? Is it
both.
Both ways. Well, you mentioned her father. So what role did her father play during as this entire thing was unfolding?
You know, it's really interesting, because her father really, in a patriarchal society, you know, as it is in the Swat Valley, he's very different in the sense that he always felt that it was important for girls to have an education and to have equality. And he himself saw it in his own family. He and his brother went to school, but his father did not have his sisters go to school. But for some reason, he felt it in himself that he wanted his daughter to be able to be equal and, you know, to shine. You know, in his words, he views education as emancipation and freedom. So he was always at the forefront of this. And even before Malala was born, he was an educator. He opened schools. He's a teacher. So he sort of gave her the support she needed. And there was a TED Talk he was in this past year, and he mentioned that it's not what he did, it's what he didn't do. And that what he says he didn't do is he didn't clip her wings. He allowed her to fly by having this education.
Now, you mentioned you're involved with the foundation. You talked a little bit about the Clinton Global Initiative recently. Are they getting also involved in this girls' education thing as well?
Clinton Global Initiative definitely is, yeah. They realize it's a very important issue. I was there earlier this week, and in fact, there was an announcement yesterday where the Malala Fund will be working in concert with the Brookings Institution and Acnita Giving on supporting girls' education, specifically at the secondary level.
Wow, great. So just closing, we talked about the fund itself, and one of the points you made was it's important that it feel like it's an indigenous fund, that it not be people from, you know, highly developed economies coming in and try to run things for other folks. How are you trying to structure the fund in a way that sort of retains that local flavor and voice?
Yeah, through different realms, through the board, through the projects that we support, through fundraising activities, through where Malala spends her time and where her voice is heard. Because I think there is suspicion that this is just another Western-focused plan to help the global South.
Well, hateful people would want to put a hateful turn to everything.
Yes, and she, you know, Malala has an amazing voice, an amazing opportunity, and I think the moral authority to go out and speak in a very forceful way on the importance of girls' education and making sure that this is a right for everyone. And we as Americans know that we have to fight for certain freedoms, and she totally understands, really understands that message, that this is something that she feels is her cause. I mean, I don't know if many of you read her book, but there's one quote that I really liked, and I think it's been requoted many times, where she says she does not want to be remembered as the girl who was shot by the Taliban. She wants to be remembered as the girl who fought for education, and she wants to make this her life cause.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, listen, thank you very much for being here on behalf of me. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was great.
That's great.
Please.
Thank you.
Please go ahead. Wow. Wow. Whew. So, you know, we've heard four, I think, inspiring stories, and each one, I'm taking something very different from each one. So we started with the magical team, and the thing that's so amazing to me about the Tesla design story, it's part of a bigger story that's around design thinking. And design thinking is one of these things that is permeating our culture, and it basically, part of it is just the excitement of design, bringing that into the rest of our life, the D School at Stanford and that. A lot of it is designing back from the customer and not forward from the ego. I loved when Barry asked Franz, and he said, why didn't you design the Batmobile or some amazing design statement, which is what somebody would have done 25 years ago. Or if you've ever stayed at the W, you know exactly what I mean. It's absolutely stunning, and you can't possibly find a comfortable place to sit down. And here's the Tesla, and it's like absolutely amazing, but it's welcoming. And so I think the notion that design can have a humanity and a humaneness, it's really very exciting. And then we went to Airbnb, and to me, again, Airbnb in microcosm is a disruptive business model. It had an extremely interesting economic impact in a moment of crisis. But that was just the crucible in which this thing was born. The notion of a collaborative economy, as we move from an industrial society to a digital society, it's not clear what happens to middle-class jobs. You know, we don't have the huge industrial behemoths that can employ masses create masses of middle-class jobs. And so I think what we're seeing is a world responding intuitively. The human race, the human family, is saying, well, look, there's work to do and there's money to be made. It's just got to be made from the edge in, not from the core out. And that's extremely difficult for large institutions to deal with, and particularly hard for governments to deal with, because they're used to posting up against very large institutions. This really is a grassroots institution. And at its core is data science. Data science plus mobile plus internet, pulling these things together. And Uber is another example of the same thing. And I think we're going to see this over and over. Bag, borrow, and steal. You know, just finding ways to create economic value, to release trapped value by using new methods. Just as design thinking releases trapped value. And then Paul and I had a great conversation and talk about releasing trapped value, and just the whole notion of technology leadership, and the idea that you can trust people with a vision, that in fact when you trust people, they fill the space for you. And you have to take risk, and you have to have faith, and you have to let things be late binding, and you can't take the anxiety out of it. But if you play that genuinely from the heart, and we've been a technology industry from the very beginning, and we must not forget in all our excitement about design and business model that at the core, the enabling technology is what makes this thing work. At the very, very bottom, Moore's Law continues to make these technologies more and more available to us. It's an amazing gift, and it's a gift that really is centered in this valley. And then at last, we heard from Malala. And I'm imagining being on that bus, and who is Malala? And I think every one of us has to answer, I am Malala. It's the only answer left, right? So I think as we listen to that, I was listening to her video, and I got kind of teary about it. And I thought about that line about, from the Bible about, if I speak with the tongues of angels and have not love, I'm a clanging cymbal, something like that. And, I think our industry and our community does speak with the tongues of angels. I think the magic is in the air. We do magic. But we got a wake-up call earlier this year from the protesters in San Francisco who were saying, you're falling behind on the love. It's sounding like a clanging cymbal. And so I hope that we take from people like Malala, as well as the other awardees tonight, that we do up our game, that we take it to a higher level, because as I said, we got a lot to give. We just have to make sure that we show up and give it. So with that, thank you very much. I'm going to turn the podium back over to Karen. Thank you very much.